Welcome to Nebraska Preps Postgame with Damon Benning and Jacob Padilla.
Another Monday, which means another week of NEB Preps with Nebraska Preps Postgame. My man Jacob Padilla, he is alive and kicking. And you have a great flavor of a great brand of drink. I know they're not a sponsor, but ice, if you're ever looking to get off of soda, you don't like pop, those drinks are fantastic.
Yeah, I've tried to drink a little less pop, and it's a good alternative.
It's unbelievable. Sure. So once upon a time, JP, those used to be $1.
They're still not too bad.
So what's it up to, like $29, $39, $49?
Probably something like that. I don't even remember. I just grab a bunch of them.
Yeah, and they used to have, they're harder to find now, but my favorite flavor in those was crisp apple.
Haven't seen that one.
Oh, it is so good. And it's weird. Apple is like the oatmeal cookie of drinks. That flavor doesn't get enough run. Shane, when can apple get more love?
Apple needs a lot of love. I'm
man.
drinking an apple drink right now.
What's your go-to? Peach, strawberry?
I like strawberry. I don't like peach really flavored anything.
Strawberry is your go-to?
Yeah.
It's
strawberry lemonade. I like. That's my favorite Gatorade,
which
can't really find anymore.
Oh, it's hard. The light pink. Oh, it's unbelievable.
They got rid of it. Sad.
We went through the top 10 Gatorade flavors. It's weird. So what do you think's the safest? Is grape the safest?
That's my basically go-to now, since I can't really find the strawberry.
Because it's hard to screw up grape, but somehow people do sometimes. But what's the next, Shane? Strawberry and grape, those are the safest? Even orange gets some pushback.
I was going to say orange, but it probably does get a little bit of pushback there.
Orange Gatorade is in my top 2. I'm orange and fierce apple.
Yeah, that's kind of in the rotation to mix it up, not necessarily
Orange.
go to. Orange and lemon lime are the ones like, yeah, I can drink that, but not ones.
See,
that I want to.
I still like lemon lime too, and people, I mean, it's fine.
Well, orange and lemon lime are the bulk ones that you would have, like during your games, that the coach would get the Gatorade on you, that sort of thing.
Orange and lemon, betting on the color. Another week of NEB Preps as we talk about celebratory flavors. If we're celebrating, we're starting in Class B, right? Not a ton of shakeup. Things kind of staying status quo. But you start with number 1, and Jake Brack continuing to do Jake Brack things for Omaha Scott.
Yeah, Scott, 2-0 week, improved 8-0, 76-53 win against Roncalli. That was a 6-point game at halftime. And then they just stretched it out and controlled the second half, put up 40 and pulled away from Roncalli, who had a rough week, really tough
schedule.
And then I was there on Saturday night.
You double dipped.
Yeah, I wanted to go over there and see my guy Gabe play, and walked in, and he was standing there in a boot. So that didn't work out. So one of their starters is a stress reaction. So he's out a few weeks. So they had a yeah, you sit down a 6-foot shooting guard and start a 6'9" combo forward, I guess, because they had Brock Scholl take his place in the starting lineup to play with Jake Brack.
And I'm a big Brock Scholl guy, especially as a youngster, because he's just now starting to come into his own. And he was so good in the summer with that ETG group.
Yeah, and so they stepped up in class, played Bellevue East, who also played Bennington. So I guess Bellevue East is trying to expand their schedule there a little bit, play some other teams.
And, coming off of playing Westside on Friday.
Yeah, and that was a 52-45 win for Scott. They did not play particularly well. And that's the mark of a good team, is when you're not playing well, they never trailed in that game. They were up 40-24 after 3, and then Bellevue East, credit to those kids, they made a heck of a run in the 4th.
They did it. They play hard for four quarters.
JJ Ball hit 3 threes and a 3-point play in the 4th quarter to get them back into it. They got that thing down to 5 and forced a turnover, and then had a look from 3 to really put the pressure on Scott. Caught the front rim, popped out, and then Scott goes down, hits free throws, and JJ Farron went 8 for 8 in the 4th quarter, 11 for 11 from the free throw line in the game as a whole. The finish was 16. Jake Brack had 17. But again, they didn't play super great, but found a way to pull that out. So Scott maintains there at number 1.
What'd you make of Bellevue East Athletic? Kind of that long front court.
Yeah, I believe they had an injury.
Was it Robinson?
Well, he played Chris Brown, sophomore, one off the bench. He was out, but they got some good contributions. Just didn't shoot the 3 ball well enough for the amount of attempts that they had to really have a great chance. But Ryan Lanier and Eli Robinson, the seniors in the front court. Jacoby Adams moved in from Florida. 6'7" wing type can hit some tough shots for them.
Long.
So they've got some pieces there. Again, Chad Mustard's got young backcourt with that senior front court. So timelines don't necessarily line up for a complete team at this point, but he's got some pieces to build around too.
I just like watching him coach. He's 4 kids. He obviously knows what he's doing, and he gets those guys to play hard. Hasn't always been talent laden, but he understands how the best way to play to give his teams the best chance to win.
Yep. And kind of moving on, I think this week really solidified that top 3. And B, Scott is clearly number 1. Platteview though, 10-0, huge week.
A little bit of a surprise though with 3.
Yeah, and that's
So for sure 1 and 2. You said solidify the top 3. You may be right because we had some reservations going into this weekend,
and then
they answered the dinner bell.
Yeah. But Platteview, we mentioned they beat Platt Smith on Monday last week. Followed that up with 59-46 at Roncalli in a game where 22-17 at halftime, and then just opened that thing up with the 23-14 third quarter. So we've seen how good they can be when you've got other guys going, like Ezra Stewart at 24 in that Monday win. They've had Trey Mosman, they've had Alex Draper. That Roncalli game was all right, they've got Connor Milliken and you don't. And that's kind of why they won the game. Sporting Cast struggled, and they still won by double digits because Milliken had 28, went 13-16 from the free throw line, 15 rebounds, 2 assists.
It's now a good time to reiterate, if you want to ever beat them, you have to keep him off the foul line. I say that every week, and he continues to just get to the foul line, and it's a killer. Yeah. You're letting him score when the clock's not moving. Like, this is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, and it's so hard to do because he attacks so relentlessly.
Oh, yeah, he gets after you.
You've got to be perfect in the right spot, vertical every single time, or you're getting the foul call. And then you got to get a body on him. He follows that first miss up too, really well for a guard. So, and then big one, they followed that up against Bennington, 7-2, 59 win. And that was they jumped on him early.
Start to finish.
24-12 first quarter, and then just kind of treaded water the rest of the way. And I mentioned they have Connor Milliken. You don't. He had 39 in that one, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, and Trey Mosman had 15 points, 8 boards. So
he really, and so they have a couple of. So you think it's going to be Milliken and Mosman, a little M&M, but you're not quite sure what you're going to get from the other law firm, Draper, who's very capable. Ezra Stewart quietly can get you buckets. They have a nice little 1 through 5 on any given night. It's who's going to be. It's not even the Batman and the Robin. It's the Alfred, I think, that gives
the
them
third guy,
that gives them the best chance to have a chance. Ultimately, what I think is going to happen against a team like Omaha Skutt.
Stewart and Draper and obviously Milliken have played a lot of varsity basketball for them
together.
Trey Mosman's played with Milliken for a long time up until high school and even during the summer, and then. Ryman Ziebert at 6'4", good athlete, gives them the size to kind of hold their own inside, so they're not all guards like they have been at times. So just a really well-balanced team that continues to be impressive. And they've got another big week, dropping down in class, but taking on some of the best. They face Ashland Greenwood on Tuesday, Wahoo on Friday, and then they go to UTAN on Saturday for another 3-game week.
Yeah, and you talk about Wahoo sitting atop. Or not atop, number 3 in Class C, still with just the 1 loss.
Ashland Greenwood, number 1.
Yeah, they're number 1. So that's a game 2 years in a row. One, I was actually there. The other year I watched online. But those Platteview Wahoo games are always highly entertaining because both those teams get up and down the floor.
Yep. And that third team that we mentioned, Crete, 10-1 start. They suffered that 28-point loss to Omaha Scott, which
we kind of looked at each other and we're like, oh, back to reality.
Then this week they 60-31 against Gehring, and the impressive one, 68-32 against Scottsbluff on Saturday.
Yeah.
Scottsbluff coming off a good win on Friday night against Waverly. I was there for that one. We'll talk about Scottsbluff in a minute, but Crete just 13 points from Ben Ehlers, 14 from Javen Gardner, and 11 from Aiden McDowell. And those are kind of their three main guys there. They've got a couple other players with some experience there, but 68-32, not just that they won that thing, that they dominated that game from start to finish. And again, Scottsbluff ended a long road trip, but they played well on Friday night, coming off a big win, a chance to show like, hey, we belong right up here with the best in the class, and Crete was not having it. So this week, Crete faces York on Friday, and they go to Norris on Saturday. So a
little bit of truth serum.
Not taking on one of the top in the class, but those are two good tests for them.
Yeah, good chance to
York's
establish consistency. Because and York, that's a good call. Like that'll be a good little. Where are we?
Exactly right. Because York is 7-1. They're sitting there at number 4 in Mike Sauter's coaches poll. They beat Grand Island Northwest 62-51 this week. 22 from Ryan Sievers is having a great season. So they go to Grand Island Central Catholic on Tuesday, and then go to Crete on Friday. At 5 is Bennington. We mentioned they got off to a great start, and then they ran up against Platteview, and no shame in that loss. But they're sitting at 7-3 and at number 5 in the coaches poll. Had 3 games last week. They beat Ralston 69-49 behind 28 from Trey Bird and 21 from Gunnar Lim. If both those guys are going, then you're gonna have a tough time beating Bennington there.
They definitely need an Alfred, though.
Yeah,
I think when you start talking about Platteview and Scott, they've got to get some consistency from a third and a fourth option.
Yep. Then we mentioned the loss to Platteview, and then they followed that up with a 57-54 overtime win at Blair. 20 from Lim, 10 from Bird. Dylan Cassard at 10 in the middle there. So Blair's a solid team. Like you don't necessarily want to see them have to go to overtime, but they did escape. Got that win, took care of business. So they're sitting there at 7-3, and they go to Omaha Westview on Tuesday, to Waverly on Friday, and against a much improved Sasu City team. Like they're on Friday, they're not an easy out. So they've got on Saturday. So they've got
and that's at South Sioux, right?
I believe that's at home.
Is that at home? Okay. Because I was going to say, traveling, that's never
2 road games in 1 week, and then come back and play
an
a
easy
team
trip
with
to
some
make.
size and length.
Completely agree there. But if it's at home, that's a little different scenario in terms of game plan style. Is still the same.
Manny Paul will be tough for them to deal with. Real long, real productive.
I was going to say he's a handful because of his length.
Yep. And Scottsbluff, I mentioned they're 8-4. They went to Waverly playing in the auxiliary gym because there's wrestling going on the main,
which is big time there.
Gym. Yeah, the EMC duel. So they packed that. Like Scottsbluff travels well. There's plenty of red in that stands. I was sitting in their section, but packed in, good environment, and they answered every single run that Waverly made. And I tell you, Nate Kelly, freshman point guard for them. You're going to be hearing his name a lot over the next 4 years. Really impressive. Tough kid, hit some big time shots, took care of the ball, was smart, and then he played defense too. Preston Harms went off for 14 points in the second quarter, and second half did not make a shot. Kelly was in his pocket the entire night. Really impressive all around performance.
One of the adjectives that people use about Kelly is that he's sturdy.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you know what I mean? Like
solid in so many areas.
Yeah. It's just, he's strong with the basketball. Doesn't really get knocked around for a young guy. Like just sturdy.
Yeah.
Is kind of the adjective.
And he's been in double figures more often than not for them this year as a freshman, stepping into that starting point guard role for Austin Thine, who was so good for them last year as a transfer from Mitchell. And the key to Scottsbluff there is they had Kellen Harris rolling. He had 16. They only played 7 players, but all of them made contributions. Everybody scored. Everybody made some big plays. They got 9 points off the bench from Carter Reisig. And so just really good overall team performance. Following up against Crete, you had Kelly with 16. Next highest scorer with 8. Harris only had 8. So that's kind of like they have to have everybody going. to have a chance in a game like that, and they just didn't have enough guys playing well. But that's still Scottsbluff very solidly a top 10 team, competing for top 5 status to see how they bounce back from Crete. They faced a couple of Wyoming teams this week in Central and East out of Cheyenne. So not going to learn much about how they stand as far as Nebraska this week, but Roncallio's at 7 at 6-4. Mount Michael is at 8.
How about Roncallie's schedule this week that we kind of alluded to earlier?
Elkhorn North Tuesday, Fort Calhoun Friday, Mount Michael Saturday. And again, like I said, Mount Michael's there at 8, so it's kind of 7-8 right there. Mount Michael's 8-2.
So Harrison starting to get some help from. Is it? What are we saying? Is it Chop?
Polger.
Yeah, Chop.
Yeah. So Harrison
had lot of
Harrison
like there.
26 against Elkhorn, and they won that game by 20. And then Harrison Long 36 in an 80-66 win against Council Bluffs Thomas Jefferson, and Chop Polger had 22 points in that one, shot really well from 3. So.
And he goes for about 13-14 a night, so you know that's kind of steady Eddie with the way that he can play in the front court.
Yep. Beatrice at 9, McCook at 10. It's kind of rounding out in Class B. Let's speed on through here for A, since you got to get out of here. At number 1, WS, obviously 12-0. Got pushed for the first time, like the closest first win by less than 20 points all season. That
doesn't even sound right to hear you say that.
That
out loud.
Abraham Lincoln game that got pushed back to Thursday. Abraham Lincoln, their administration athletic director, offered that deal to Bellevue West, knowing that if they went to the Metro Final, that they'd be playing 4 games in 5 days. So credit to Abraham Lincoln. They didn't have to do that, but they offered it, and Bellevue, and they gave them a heck of a run. It was a 4-point game late in the first half, and then I believe Abraham Lincoln hit him with a 9-2 run there with 2 threes and 1, and then suddenly it's an 11-point game going in halftime, and it's just such a demoralizing stretch there for them.
Yeah, and Coach Woodard, I think those guys, a lot of games in just a few short days. You know, I think that was one of those games where I think he's really trying to manage minutes too. I mean, no, zero disrespect to AL, because I mean that's a fantastic team. I watch, as a matter of fact, we watch Westside play them in the summer league, and that's a team that's very capable, and we know that coaching staff highly respected. That may be a story later.
Yeah, Josiah Doser, 21 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, 4 steals, 12 points, 7 boards apiece from Robbie Garcia and Jackson Stuvey in that one. And then they followed that up with a 76-49 win against Bryan, up 36-19 halftime.
It's pretty impressive, because I felt like the style of play might lend itself to being competitive, but Bryan just doesn't shoot it well enough to keep up with that kind of pace.
And they weren't able to take advantage of Dotzer's first game this season, where he's kind of struggled. Yeah. Didn't reach double figures first time all year. Wasn't a big time playmaker either. We've seen that before, where he doesn't necessarily have to score. He just didn't have a great game, and they still find a way to win by a lot. Jane Jackson 13, Robbie Garcia 12, Stephen Pulicek 12 off the bench, Eldon Turner 10 points.
What they do.
A lot of different guys. Yeah, it's hard to stop everybody there.
And then they all turned around and came to Westside Millard North on Saturday. Boy, those Bellevue West guys, it's a close knit group, and you have to be to play that many guys and be that competitive and not take it personal.
Well, and then Josiah was at the Bellevue East Scott game too as well. So,
a rare weekend off for them.
Yeah. So they're at number 1. Gretna's still hanging in there at number 2, 9-1 record. They beat Elkhorn South 61-52, and then they got. It was actually a 2-point game. They were down 2 going in the fourth quarter.
Played some close games already, haven't they?
Just dominated the fourth quarter, 22-11. Alex Wilcoxon at 24, Landon Pekorski at 21. And then they followed that up with a 65-51 win at Omaha Central on Saturday. And that was a 1-point game at halftime. And then 22-10 third quarter, they opened that thing up. Wilcoxon had 22. Again, Alec Wilkins had 13, Landon Pekorski at 13. And Gretna was playing without Jeffrey Roselle III, the big man in the middle, who was out of town this weekend.
Which they should get him back for this week. As they got a big one
game, but it's a big one.
Yeah.
West Side on Thursday at Gretna. Yeah. So they host that.
Seems like we just played there.
Yeah,
that's right. We did just play there.
I was at that game.
This was I.
Huh.
That's the concussion game.
Yeah, yes, it was. I tell you though, Caleb had that hard fall in the Metro tournament. That first one, I was like, that looked a lot like what happened at that Gretna game. I was kind of worried for a second there, but bounced right back up. At 3, still hanging in there off the strength of that Metro tournament semifinal or runner-up finish is Creighton Prep at 8-4. Had a tough one. Had to kind of pull away in the fourth quarter. 46-42 win at Papio South. Again, that thing was tied going in the fourth quarter, and Prep won at 14-10. Dylan Clausen, 17 points, 8 rebounds. Didn't really have anybody else going on offense, but they held Papio South to 31% shooting. So defense definitely won them that game. Obviously, if scoring 46 points and being able to win, not often that's going to be the case.
And I know they're 10, but let's talk about them in the same vein just because it was against Prep. I think negotiating or navigating ball shot selection and his volume based on what the rest of that team is doing is going to be something to watch.
Yeah, and they had a tough week, but 6-4, like you said, down there at 10. They had that loss to Prep and then bounced back and only beat Millward West by 6. Only scored 50 points. They shot a combined 11 for 41 from 3 in their 2 games this week. And yeah, Reese Kircher with 14 and Bryson Ball with 13 in that Prep game. Yeah, Bryson Ball with 13 and the only one in double figures in that second game against Millward West. So they got to get – that's a team that kind of lives and dies by the 3 a lot because some of their supporting cast.
They don't get a lot of easy points in the paint.
Exactly right. They don't have a true big man that kind of can get you easy paints. Mawjaw is kind of hanging in there as their 5 in that starting lineup. So that's something that they're going to have to find a way to generate a little bit easier points if they want it to make a run. But yeah, so
I tell you though, Jaw has turned into an elite level defender. He can really guard. I thought he really guarded Dotzler well at the holiday tournaments. I felt like he was really good against Prep in terms of defending. PJ Newbold, like he's got a lot of versatility. He's kind of, and I like good defense because I think ultimately you're going to have to be able to get some stops if you want to have a chance to win state because you have to be able to neutralize Dotzler and Jaden Jackson if you want to give yourself a chance here at the state tournament.
Yep. And then Prep followed that 75-43 win at Westview, up big at halftime, and that game was over. So
I thought it started though like that was going to be fairly competitive. Coach Runco at Westview just too young.
Yep. Too young. Not a lot of size, but they definitely got some pieces to build around there. At 4, your West Side Warriors 9-2 took care of business 85-41 against Bellevue East, and Tate Oddvuddy scored 13 in that game to go over 1,000 for his career, and his shooting percentages throughout his career are really impressive. He's done it at a high level. He's scored double figures every single year of his varsity career. Just a really good scoring wing. And then followed that up with the 69-52 really impressive win at Millward North, which was win number 100 for Coach Jim Simons' 6th season at the helm there. Win percentage north of 700. He's done a really good job, and congrats to him on hitting that milestone. Had some really good players to help him along, but he's done a great job making that program a place where kids want to play.
Yeah, that was start to finish. That one surprised me a little. I thought Westside would win, and I just talked about, because I think ultimately sometimes in the Metro, JP, and because you're around summer basketball so much, I just think that there are personalities kind of that when they meet head to head, I'm always interested to see how it plays out. And this one was, the 3 of, Stubblefield, Mitchell, Benning against Mosser and Eli. And the X factors were Rollins and Oddvuddy. But the real X factor turned out to be Kevin Brown. So I just look at the mindsets. Yeah. Westside is supremely confident when playing Millard North. I think they just feel good about the matchups, and you saw it when it tipped.
Yeah, and Westside won that game with their defense. Their game plan was phenomenal, and it starts with Kevin Brown on Derek Rollins. They want to run everything through him in the post, and he did a great job making him fight for everything that he got. He finished with 20. He only had 8 through the first 3 quarters. 12 of those were in the fourth quarter after the game was already over. And it started with Brown there, battle him inside, fronting, communicating, calling out for the backside help. They did a great job.
Where the weak side helps and the doubles came from on the baseline. It was hectic.
It's a really great defensive game plan because in the first half, Millard North hit threes to kind of hang in it. There were a couple busts on Mosser. 6 for 9 in the first half.
Yeah.
And they weren't able to score inside the arc. And they turned it over. It was 8 to 2, I think.
That's going to be their thing.
Yeah. Westside had 2 turnovers in the first 3 quarters combined. Millard North had 8 in the first half. They had 12 in the first 3 quarters, finished with 14. So that was a difference. Westside just got more cracks. Again, shots up. They didn't have a great offensive game in terms of shooting percentages, especially from 3. And Millard North busted out the zone in the second quarter. That kind of slowed them down.
Kind of slowed it down.
But they just, in the second half, the 3 stopped falling. They went 1 for 7, didn't hit a 3 until the fourth quarter, and they still couldn't score inside the arc because of Westside's defense. So that was impressive. Oddbody finished with 24, had 10 in that second quarter because Kevin Stubblefield had 7 in the first quarter, hit all 3 of his shots, picked up a second foul almost immediately in the second quarter and sat down. And they didn't need to bring him back because Oddbody stepped up and hit some big shots against the zone.
When he's in rhythm, shooting the ball off of, those balls get in his shooting pocket, Tate's knocking those down.
And then in addition,
turn into a much better catch and shooter.
Yeah.
I think the less he dribbles, the better he is because, man, he can knock it down when in rhythm.
Yep. And so Stubblefield finished with 13. Brown had 12 points, following up 14 against Bellevue East. Another good week for him. Moved the ball well. So just contributed in a lot of different ways. And like I said, made the difference in that game. Caleb Benning had 9 points, really efficient. CJ Mitchell, 8 points, 5 assists. So you got contributions from that entire starting 5. And that's how Westside needs it to be done. You need all those guys being an important piece of that. And that was the case. This was, again, despite not shooting the ball well, this is what you want to see Westside looking like when they're playing well.
I think the more practices they have, it's the 5th with this nucleus together. I'm encouraged about their upside. I don't know if it'll be enough, right, when it's all said and done, but they will be much better as the season goes along because they'll be playing together more.
Yep. At 5, Lincoln High, or we mentioned Westside has a big game against Gretna this week again.
That's the big one.
Only one game this week for them. So both those teams will have plenty of time to really lock in on their game plans and prepare for that one. Lincoln High at 5 followed up the HAC tournament title with a 48-51 loss at Lincoln North Star because Lincoln's just going to continue to beat each other up.
Man, they jumped on them so early.
Yeah.
It was, 10-1, 11-1 to start in that first quarter, and you're like, what is going on?
Just couldn't finish. But then they bounced back and beat Lincoln Southwest, who got a huge win on Friday night.
And they went 1-1 over the weekend.
And won that one 62-54.
Yeah.
And that was 21-12 first quarter. Southwest battled, it was 1-point game going in third, and then Lincoln High just controlled the fourth 19-12 to win that game. So still don't know what to make of Lincoln. We mentioned because we'll get the Lincoln High as Northeast on Thursday and Central on Saturday. So another kind of tough test where they can continue to prove themselves. At 6 is Millard North. We mentioned that lost to Westside there. They got to kind of figure some things out offensively there. Followed a 75-18 win against Omaha Northwest, and they've got Central and Lincoln East this week for Millard North.
I'll be curious to watch that Lincoln East game as they sit at number 7 with just the 2 losses. Coach Campbell will have a good game plan, and they got a couple of our guys.
Carter Templemeyer, 57 points in its last 2 games. Not bad. Had 29 against Fremont this week, had 28 last week.
It is so cool to watch these guys like Davis and Templemeyer and Brown, like guys that you have these close relationships with, really start to flourish. Because you kind of skipped over it at Millard North, but he may have to play more.
I'm biased. I think he can help.
He settles
things
down.
Yep.
And he doesn't turn the ball over.
Yep.
I think he's got to play.
Yep. Yes.
Lincoln East proud coach over here. proud coach.
Lincoln East has Kearney and Millard North this week. At 8 is Lincoln North Star, 7-3.
I can't figure them out.
Nope. They 51-48 that win against Lincoln High. Got 17 points from Antalis and Linnell. 16 points, 6 steals, 4 rebounds for Lazarus Houston. And then they followed it up with a.
Now I do know that I'm a big Lazarus guy.
And he had another good week, 74-60 against Westview. San Linnell had 26-9 in that one. Westview just doesn't have size to match up with them. Brent Clemens had 16, again, size there. And Houston had 15.6 assists. So he's been a really good pickup for them. At 9, Lincoln Southwest mentioned that 78-76.
Such a weird team.
Showdown with Lincoln Southeast. Pack Gym. Sauter went to that one. Lincoln Southeast shot 12 of 21 from 3. Lincoln Southwest shot 13 of 27. Yeah. Braden Frager at 28 went 6 of 8 from 3 himself. And Rylan Smith had 16
not sure you could bottle that and repeat it, but he's such a good athlete. He is dangerous. I feel like he comes up once a week.
Yeah. So seeing kind of what happened there, and then only mustering 54 points against Lincoln High, maybe spoke to the level of defense in that game. But that was, I mean, it was 69-54 Lincoln Southeast after the third quarter. And then they just dominated the fourth 24-7 to win that thing. Jake Hilkman, who had a good game, had a kind of step back 3 at the buzzer that Lucas Helms blocked to seal that game. And a shout out to Rylan Smith, who became Southwest's
all-time leading scorer
recently, breaking Ben Hunziker's record, who set that last year.
I was with his dad all day Sunday.
Yep. So, yeah, just confounding team. And then they go to Lincoln North Star on Friday this week. And we already mentioned Papio South there. That kind of rounds out the top 10 in A. Just quickly hitting on Class C1, Ashland Greenwood at number 1, 10-0. Ogallala, 2, 12-0, having a great season. Jaron Gager and that crew out there. Wahoo in there at 3 with the only loss to Ashland Greenwood. And Pierce is 10-0 at number 4. Class C2.
How about Pierce double dipping?
Yeah. And some of the same guys too, as you expect in small town, smaller classes. C2 Freeman, I think, has kind of established itself as a clear number 1 there at 11-0. Amherst is 10-1. Donovan Trumbull is 12-0 at 3. And wrapping things up with kind of my weekly shout outs. Shout out to Landon Klassen at O'Neill, senior point guard there, who missed a few games with an injury, was able to come back. Monster week last week, 24 points, 9 rebounds, 10 assists, just missed the triple-double against Winnebago, and then followed it up with 36 points, 5 of 7 from 3, 13 rebounds in a win at Boone Central. So a huge week for Landon Klassen, really good player out there for O'Neill. Carter Seams, Tri-County, 30 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists against Friend, and then followed that up with 23 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals against Fairbury. Jeremiah Ingeson from Maywood Hayes Center, 22 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals against Sand Hills Valley, and then followed up with 18 points, 10 rebounds, 1 assist, 4 steals, 2 blocks against Paxton, and 34 points, 12 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals against Highline. And finally, usually stick with small classes, but Ethan Youngtum at Elkhorn deserves a shout out. 40 points, 14 of 21 from the field, including 6 of 11 from 3, 11 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, and 2 blocks in a 12-point win against Boys Town.
Not bad.
This is some of the biggest, the kind of standouts that I saw from the week. So.
It'd be interesting to see if, and I don't know if it's sustainable, but if Elkhorn could figure out ways to score a little easier.
They hit a rough patch, but maybe that game will get them going. You're not going to get 40 from Young Tum every week, so you got to find other offensive solutions. But good to get back in the win column after a rough stretch for a coach.
Program that was in the preseason top 10. That's another week. It is comprehensive, man. We do it because we love it, and we love that you guys love it, and gals for that matter. That's Jacob Padilla. I'm Old DB. It's NEB Preps. That's Shane producing as always. He's the real deal. We'll be back next week. NEB Preps.
A Hurrdat Sports Network production.